Ladies and gentlemen, I am Rook, and let me welcome you back to the table for a deck profile, Yu-Gi-Oh! Speed Duel deck profile. Been a while since I did one of these, and I wanted to share the deck that I was running for the most recent Yu-Gi-Oh! Remote Duel extravaganza that happened in May, the Speed Duel deck that I was using the entire time. This is a variation of the Apprentice Monarch deck, which I covered in kind of the meta snapshot that I did maybe a month and a half ago, with a couple tweaks that I made that I found were really successful in specific situations. And for those of you that haven't really been kind of up to date on the Speed Duel stuff and you want a really top tier deck to just plug in and get started, well, here you go. This is going to be the deck for you guys for May 2021 going into the summer. This is one of the best decks. I saw this. I played against Monarchs pretty consistently in the last extravaganza. I saw Magnets, I saw Unions, but mostly Monarchs. That's the deck that's going to get you. This is the competitive deck to build if you are trying to enter the Remote Duel extravaganza, trying to get yourself some mats, some Speed Duel coins, some Tournament Pack 1. A lot of money in prize support there. Let's go ahead and get started. Just going to go right down the line. Let's start with the skill. Skill is Inner Conflict. If you guys are familiar with Speed Duel, you have heard of this skill. This is probably the best skill in the game right now. This is the pay half your life points and take a monster from your opponent. Now you have to give it back at the end phase, so this is going to be your tribute fodder. Inner Conflict cannot be chained in response to. It is a skill you activate in your main phase. That is what makes it so great. Change a heart, pay half your life points. So there's Inner Conflict is going to be the skill. The goal is to Inner Conflict a monster away from your opponent so that we can get into our boss monsters. Let's go. Looking at the monsters for the Apprentice Monarch deck, of course, the 3 Apprentice Magician. This is great tribute fodder, and also when it's destroyed by battle and sent to the grave, we can special summon face down a level 2 or lower spellcaster, which is why we also have an Old Vindictive Magician. So the 3 Apprentice Magician, 1 Old Vindictive, sometimes 2 Old Vindictive, sometimes not even 3 Apprentice, maybe we're doing 2 and 2. But this is pretty much what you're going to see in a lot of the Apprentice Monarch decks. This is what deviates it from a regular Inner Conflict Monarch, because a lot of Inner Conflict Monarchs that aren't Apprentice Magician focused are going something like Charging Gaia, you know, or some other kind of big beefy monster in lieu of the Apprentice kind of engine and the Destroyed by Battle. This also works really well with Creature Swap, because if you Creature Swap your Apprentice Magician with something, you destroy it through battle, then you can get the special summon on your side because it goes to your grave. So, moving on with monsters 3, Breaker the Magical Warrior, the best staple in the game, I'd say so. A lot of the games I played in the extravaganzas the past couple months have been Breaker slap fights, Breaker pop a card, Breaker pop a card, Spheres books, trying to get Breaker in defense mode because that 1,000 defenses is not good for it, but this is a serious staple. It is an MST and a 1,600 attack monster even afterwards, 19 with the counter, and Apprentice Magician gets counters on Breaker if you normal summon it, so it just works super, super well in this deck. So there's 3 Breaker the Magical Warrior. And now let's go into our Monarchs. We have 2 Blowback Dragon, which I'm mad at right now. I don't want to talk to Blowback Dragon because there were a couple games where I had to go to coin toss 3 different times until I could kill something. So that's a downside with Blowback. It's a barrel dragon where you essentially a mini barrel dragon. So you flip 3 coins, 2 heads, you pop something. It could be anything on your opponent's side of the field. It could be a face-up monster, set card, but you need 2 heads. So there is the dice roll in that. I was running 3 at one point, and I was like, I can't run 3 because I've just been burned. I've been burned quite a few times. I mean, when it hits, it's fire. It hits so hard. The deck's not even fair when it hits. But if it doesn't hit, it's a 2,300 attack monster, and other Monarchs like Kaiser Glider and Jinzo are 2,400, so that's going to be a problem for you there. But if you can do your once per turn flip and it hits for you, perfect. Other monster I have for a Monarch is Dark Ruler Hades. Dark Ruler is a new addition. And the reason why I put in Dark Ruler is because it negates the effects of monsters destroyed by battle with Fiend monsters, so Dark Ruler, essentially my only Fiend. So the reason why Hades is in here is because I did see a lot of other Apprentice Monarch decks. So this will shut down Apprentice Magician. This also shuts down some other specific things. We see Moths running Newdoria, even something like, I believe it shuts down Delta. You know, if you have somebody playing Magnets, they have 3 Magnets in the grave, it shuts something like that down. So Dark Ruler Hades, also really good because it's 2,450 attack. What's going on with that light there? Can you guys see that? 2,450 attack, which will beat over your Kaiser Glider, which is a huge pain in the butt because Kaiser Glider's effect, you know, it wins trades essentially, and a lot of them are 2,400, a lot of these Monarchs. So Dark Ruler beats Kaiser Glider, beats Jinzo, obviously beats Blowback. So Dark Ruler is a good addition. I have had some success with that. I also have spare Monarchs in the side deck, so you can really mix and match and get creative depending on what you're playing against. Last monster is the 3-Sphere Karibo. Got to be running these guys. The Dark Moth is still out there. It's still scary. All of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where if you don't have these suckers, it is over. So 3-Sphere Karibo. those are all the monsters. Moving on to spells. Hey, look at that. Allure Darkness. All dark targets, of course. Dark Ruler Hades is no exception. These are all dark targets. 3 Allure Darkness works very well here for the card draw. 2 Book of Moon. Only 2. I have the third one in the side deck, but Book of Moon, very solid staple as well. Gets around the Jinzo, flips on the face down defense position. You're going to be booking other people's breakers. You are going to be booking into place for an inner conflict or to be able to tribute off your Apprentice Magician. So there's 2 Book of Moon. And then I do have the 1 creature swap. Creature swap works really well in this deck because of the Apprentice Magician and Old Vindictive. You can flip an Old Vindictive, well, now you have a liability on the field with 450 attack. So a creature swap will then allow you to swap Old Vindictive with a good monster that your opponent has. It's really good value, especially if you get the Old Vindictive flip up first. So there's creature swap, also works really well, of course, with Apprentice Magician, because you can then battle into it and you still get Apprentice Magician's effect on your side because it's going to your grave. And now, traps. Yes, we are not original. Here's 3 Zoma the Spirit, right in the light there. Here's 3 Zoma the Spirit. Yes, these are the foil ones. Don't tell anybody. I have the Speed Duel copies, I swear. Guys, I had these on standby in case somebody called me out. I have the Speed Duel copies, all right? But I like the bling. I like the bling. So look at that. Look at how that looks in the light, right? It's pretty nice. 3 Zoma the Spirit for obvious reasons. Fantastic trap. Gonna burn your opponent if it beats into it. You activate it. You can activate it on the end phase. I like to activate it a little earlier now because, you know, Night Beam is making a crawl back into the meta. So I try and proactively get around the Night Beam by activating. So maybe I'll set it. I activate it on their draw phase, standby phase the next turn. Get the Zoma out there. Obviously, Breaker is shutting this down. But, you know, you got somebody with XYZ or Valkyrian or, you know, Moth. Any big boss monster, Zoma's going to shut that down, especially if you're playing another Monarch deck that already interconflicted. Say they interconflicted at full, so they're at 2,000. So anything they're going to bring out, you know, aside from Jinzo obviously shuts this down, but like say they bring out a Kaiser Glider, the Zoma all of a sudden stops that deck in its tracks. Zoma is always going to be a secondary win condition, and until it gets banned or limited or whatever they're going to do with some sort of ban list, I don't know if they ever will, but that's going to be a staple for sure. So that is the entire Apprentice Monarch deck. This is the deck that I ran particularly in this past Remote Duel Extravaganza that occurred just last weekend. And for those of you that are trying to get into Speed Duels a little bit and play some of these Extravaganza events, trying to get some of that prize support, this is a great deck to plug in and play. You know, a lot of these cards, this deck is a little tougher to acquire than like an Interconflict deck, just because the Apprentice Magicians are from a set from a couple years ago, Dark Rulers from Structure, Zomas from Structure. Really the only Battle City box cards here are Book and Breaker and Creature Swap. But everything else you're going to have to find, you know, paste together from structures and booster boxes in the past. And I do have a side deck, so let's go right into the side deck here. Side deck is actually 6 individual cards. So if we move all that over here, our side deck is a Jinzo, a Book of Moon, a Creature Swap, a Lost Wind, Widespread Ruin, and Awakening the Dragon. Jinzo, good swap for something like Blowback's not working for you, right? Blowback's not working. Dark Ruler just isn't a good fit. There's the Jinzo. I always side out Zomas if I'm putting Jinzo in because I don't want to shoot myself in the foot by having traps and a Jinzo. I have done that. I can live with 1, maybe 2 traps in my deck while I put a Jinzo in. Because there's a chance that it doesn't backfire, but it's a little dangerous. Like if I'm trying to put in Jinzo, my opponent's playing a lot of traps, I usually pair these 2. You know, I side in the 3rd Book of Moon and the Jinzo, take out 2 Zomas, right? And then Creature Swap, another Creature Swap, just in case you're seeing that value and you're clicking with the Apprentice Magicians and the Old Vindictive. It just works with the deck you're playing against. Lost Wind is great against Unions and even Magnets, even Moth, any special summoned monsters. It cuts that attack in half and it doesn't allow them to activate their effects. The Widespread Ruin is just a pretty good, you know, staple trap. We don't see it run in the main deck we used to, but it's good side. It's just when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you destroy their highest attack monster. So there's Widespread Ruin. And then Waking the Dragon, of course, because we're seeing Night Beam come back and Breaker is not going anywhere, which is, every time I've sided Waking the Dragon, I think every other time I side Waking the Dragon and draw it, it gets woken, you know? It's so woke. There is so much back row removal with Breaker right now, and, you know, you got the Moths running Night Beam. So Waking the Dragon is a serious side. I'd just do the 1, really. And then, you know, extra deck cards in response to Waking. Obviously, guys, for those of you who don't know what Waking the Dragon does, it's when it gets destroyed, you know, popped like a Dust Tornado, Night Beam, something removes it from the back row. You can special summon a monster from your extra deck for free. And the biggest ones that I always gravitate to is the Arcanonite Joker, and the Blue Eyes Ultimate. Usually the Arcanonite Joker, because if you're playing against a Moth deck, if they try and target Joker with Parasite Paranoid, you can use its effect to drop something like, maybe I have a spare Sphere Creep or another monster in my hand. Because it's a monster effect, I can drop that to the grave to negate Parasite, which is really good. And sometimes if I just want to go hard, I get the Blue Eyes Ultimate for that 4,500 attack. But Arcanonite Joker is solid too with 3,800. Like, really, Arcanonite Joker is going to be the card you're going to see. You could also put a Thousand Eyes Restrict here. I mean, obviously, extra deck is 6 slots, so, you know, it doesn't have to just be these two. These are the two that I gravitate to the most. I do have a Thousand Eyes Restrict somewhere over here. But you could definitely put that in too. I've seen it used for Waking. It just kind of locks all the monsters down as well. So only it can attack, and it's sucking monsters away from you. So there's Thousand Eyes. So that, with side and extra, is more or less the entire Apprentice Monarch deck that I used in this last extravaganza. I believe that it is top tier. I think it is one of the best, if not the best deck in Speed Duel right now. It is hard to say if Apprentice or regular Interconflict Monarchs, which one's beating the other. I did not see a lot of Moth this past weekend, so maybe people are... I mean, I stopped playing Moth a while ago. Yeah, I really like the creativity of these decks and splashing the different Monarchs. You know, aside from Jinzo, Blowback, and Dark Ruler, you got the Kaiser Glider. You have... you can use something like Gap the Divine Soldier if you're playing against Apprentice Magician with your Flip Old and Vindictive. You can use something like Grand Marg. That's what I used in the beginning. Grand Marg's a great one. You flip, you pop the set monster. So a lot of creativity. It's a great deck to kind of pick up and play. And of course, we still aren't sure when next product's coming out. So guys, this deck's really not going to be that hard to maintain if you want to get into Speed Duel and you kind of want to just like drop a fat $60 and be done with it and just have a deck that you can play when locals come back. This is a good deck to buy. Definitely a good deck to pick up. Catch you guys later. Enjoy. Happy dueling. See ya.